All right, guys, we're going to talk about the structure of the atom today. You already know there are three subatomic particles, the proton, neutron, and electron. Proton has a positive charge in our nucleus, and it has a mass. Neutron, no charge in the nucleus, and has the same mass as the proton. Electron has a negative charge, and it's outside of our nucleus in the cloud, and it really has no mass compared to our proton and neutron. Protons, neutrons, and electrons can be distinguished by their mass, their charge, and their location in the atom. Here's a great breakdown of the three different types of subatomic particles we have in our atom. The electron, again, has a negative charge. It has zero mass. It's outside of our nucleus, and it controls the charge of our atom. Now, right now, we're going to say all our atoms are neutral, and we'll talk more about that later. Proton has a positive charge. It has 1 AMU, which stands for 1 atomic mass unit. When we talk about mass with protons and subatomic particles, they're so small they have their own unit. We call it AMU, or atomic mass unit. So a proton is 1 AMU. It's in the nucleus, and it defines the element. So whatever protons an element has, that defines the element. If an element has 8 protons, it's oxygen. If it has 4 protons, it's beryllium. The number of protons will tell you what element it is. The neutron is zero charge, neutral, and it's also 1 AMU, or 1 atomic mass unit. It's also in our nucleus, and it basically adds mass to your atom of your element. It doesn't change it, it will add mass, making it heavier at times. And we'll talk about what that means a little bit later. We'll mention isotopes a little bit later on, but not now. So everything scientists think about the nucleus and subatomic particles is based on how the particles will behave. The atoms of any given element always have the same number of protons. So how do we know the number of protons of our element? We look at the atomic number. The atomic number will always tell us how many protons are in that atom of that element. You can use atomic numbers to refer to elements like names and symbols. Atoms of different elements will have different numbers of protons. Each positive charge in our atom is balanced by a negative charge, so we say atoms are neutral. If an atom has 8 protons, it'll have 8 electrons. It'll balance out. We're going to say they're neutral. This means the atomic number will also tell us that that's the same number of electrons. So if the atomic number is 8, that means we have 8 protons and 8 electrons. The mass number is the sum of how many protons and neutrons we have. On the periodic table, you'll see a decimal place where the atomic mass is. We're going to round that decimal to the nearest whole number. The number of neutrons will equal that mass number that's rounded minus the atomic number, and that will give us our number of neutrons. Every atom of a given element does not have the same number of neutrons, and we'll talk about what neutrons do to an element a little bit later. Here's an example for you of what you might see on the periodic table. This is oxygen. So we look at oxygen. This number right here, this 8, the number 8 is our atomic number. The capital O is our symbol. Right below that is the name of our element, oxygen. And below this is the atomic mass. Now, it's in a decimal, and we'll talk about why it's in a decimal later. But to get our mass number, we're going to round this decimal to the nearest whole number, which would be 16. So at the bottom here, the atomic number tells us what? It tells us how many protons and electrons we have. So oxygen has 8 protons and it has 8 electrons. The atomic mass equals the number of protons and neutrons we have, because those are the only 2 particles that have a mass. So we add them up and they tell us our mass of our atom. We'll do a quick review here of how to figure out the atomic number, atomic mass, protons, neutrons, and electrons of an atom. Now, we look up here, we see the number 8. That is our atomic number, so we'll write that in. Our atomic mass is 15.999. Our number of protons is the same as our atomic number. So it will be 8. We'll skip down to electrons right here. Electrons is also the same as our atomic number, which would be 8. Number of neutrons. We have to round our atomic mass to the nearest whole number. So that's 16. And once we have our mass number, we subtract our atomic number, which is 8, to get our number of neutrons, which would be 8. So in this case, we have 8 protons, 8 neutrons, and 8 electrons. That won't always be the case. Now, our last step is here. This atom is oxygen, so we'll write that in there. Our next element is zinc. So our top number again is what? Our top number is our atomic number. We'll write that right there, number 30. Now, what does that atomic number tell us? Well, it tells us our number of protons, and the atomic number tells us our number of electrons. The atomic mass is 65.39. It's a decimal. But we have to round our atomic mass to the nearest whole number. In this case, it would be 65. To get our neutrons, again, we take our rounded atomic mass minus our atomic number. So it's 65 minus 30, and that gives us 35 neutrons. Right now, I want you guys to pause the video and see if you can figure out how to fill in the rest of these over here on the right side. So pause your video now, and then we'll check your answers in a moment. Okay, so if you look in the periodic table, we see that this is lithium. We'll write that in there. What's our atomic number? Right here, 3. Our atomic mass is 6.941. Now, how do we find number of protons? Our protons is always the atomic number. Very good. And how do we, let's get down to electrons. Remember, there's 3 protons, atomic number, same as electrons, 3 and 3. Remember, our atoms are neutral, 3 positives, 3 negatives. Now, how do we find neutrons again? We look at our atomic mass. We have to round our atomic mass, and there's whole number, which would be 7. Once we have our atomic mass rounded to our nearest whole number, that's our mass number, we are going to subtract our atomic number of 3. And we get 4 neutrons. You may replay and watch the video as much as you want to get a quick review. Please let me know if you have questions.